Okay, let's unpack this. You've shared with us a source, a transcript from a YouTube video, and it details, well, one of the most horrific and impactful criminal cases in recent Indian history.
It really is a difficult one, and our goal today is to go through that source material, look at the key events, the people involved, the investigation, the trials, and the lasting impact it had.
Exactly. This case, the source calls it one of the most brutal crimes of the decade in India. It happened back in December 2012.
Right. It starts, as the source sets it up, with a scene that was just tragically ordinary before it turned into something unspeakable.
A young woman who the source refers to mostly as Nirbhaya and her male friend were just on a bus in Delhi. They'd been to see a movie, an evening out.
Yeah, the source identifies her as Jyoti Singh. She was 22, studying physiotherapy, had dreams of helping people. Nirbhaya was what her family and friends called her.
And her background, as the source describes it, it really paints a picture, doesn't it? Eldest child, only daughter from a lower middle class family.
Very supportive parents. Her father, the source mentions, he worked 2 jobs just to fund her education. He really valued her drive to learn. It's quite touching, actually.
Yeah, it really is, that dedication. And the friend with her.
Avindra Pratap Pandey. He was a software engineer. The source mentions there was some ambiguity, maybe about whether it was just friendship or something more, but clearly they were close, cared for each other.
Okay, so the night itself. Sunday, December 16th, 2012. Around 9:30 p.m., they're waiting for a bus to get home to Dwarka after the movie.
Right. Dwarka was where Jyoti lived, and Avindra was seeing her home.
So they board this bus. The source says there were already 6 other people on it, including the driver.
That's right. So with Jyoti and Avindra, that makes 8 people total on the bus.
And at first, it probably seemed okay. The driver said he was going towards Dwarka. Someone acted like a conductor, took their fare 10 rupees each.
Yeah, seemed routine for a moment. But then, things start to feel wrong. Avindra noticed the bus wasn't taking the correct route to Dwarka.
And more than that.
He saw the door seemed locked, or maybe blocked somehow. And importantly, the bus just wasn't stopping. It didn't pick up any other passengers, which, is weird for a public bus.
Yeah, that's a definite red flag. So Avindra, what did he do?
Well, according to the source, he confronted the driver, asked him to stop the bus so they could just get off.
And that's when it all unraveled.
Completely. The other 6 men on the bus, who apparently all knew each other, they became aggressive, started yelling at them, abusing them.
Questioning why they were out so late together, the source says, like blaming them already.
Exactly. And then it escalated very quickly. 5 of the men started sexually harassing Jyoti.
And Avindra tried to stop them.
He did. The source says he tried to shield her, protect her, but he was just 1 against 6.
Oh gosh, what happened to him?
One of the men attacked him with an iron rod, beat him until he was unconscious. The source even specifies the rods found later were L-shaped, rusty, maybe part of a vehicle jack.
Horrifying. So Avindra was unconscious.
And Jyoti was dragged to the back of the bus. What followed, the source describes it as just brutal. 5 of the men, and this includes the 17-year-old juvenile who was amongst them, they raped her repeatedly.
And the driver, too.
Yes, the source explicitly states the driver also took turns. Others would drive the bus while he participated. And this went on for over half an hour while the bus was still moving through the city.
It's just hard to even comprehend that level of cruelty.
Yeah.
And after the assault...
After that horrific ordeal, the source says they searched both of them, stole their valuables.
Man.
Then, while the bus was still moving, they opened the doors and threw Jyoti and Avindra out onto the roadside.
Threw them out like trash. Unbelievable. Were they found quickly?
Thankfully, yes. Around 11 p.m., the source says a passerby found them. Semi-clothed, covered in blood, severe wounds, unconscious, but still alive.
Well, thank goodness. So the police were called?
Yes, police were called, and they were rushed to Safdarjung Hospital.
How bad was her condition when she arrived?
Critical. Absolutely critical. She needed immediate emergency treatment, put on a ventilator, comatose. The source quotes a doctor saying she was very bad. They didn't even know where to begin treatment. Like, her body was shattered but still breathing.
Shattered but still breathing.
Huh.
That's an incredibly grim description. What about the specific injuries? The source details them.
It does, and it's extremely graphic. External wounds, scratches, bite marks all over. But the internal damage, an object, an iron rod most likely, had been violently inserted. It penetrated her uterus, went into her abdominal cavity.
Oh my.
Her intestines, her genitals, severely torn. Parts of her intestine had actually been pulled out. They were later found, the source says, attached to that iron rod they recovered from the bus. Basically, impaled and violated with extreme violence.
I can't even imagine. And Avindra's injuries.
Serious, definitely. Bruises, external wounds, a broken leg that needed a cast. But fortunately, the source says, not the kind of catastrophic internal injuries Jody suffered. His life wasn't in the same immediate danger. Her condition was far, far more critical.
So while she's fighting for her life in the hospital, the police investigation kicks off. How quickly did that happen?
Incredibly quickly. The very next morning, December 17th, the source really emphasizes the speed.
What were the first steps?
They used CCTV footage to track down that specific bus, found it, seized it, and on the bus, crucial evidence.
The iron rods.
Yes, the 2 blood-stained, rusty iron rods. And forensics confirmed, the source states, that human tissue found on them was intestine, a direct link to Joyoti's injuries.
Okay. And they identified the bus, the driver.
Yeah, the bus was leased to a private school. The driver was identified as Ram Singh. And Avindra, he was conscious enough to provide a statement which helped the police create sketches of the attackers.
And they used his stolen phones, too.
Right. They tracked the cell signals from Jyoti and Avindra's stolen phones. All these pieces came together very fast.
Leading to arrests.
Swift arrests. The source highlights this. Within 24 hours of starting the investigation, all 6 suspects were caught. Ram Singh, the driver, his brother Mukesh Singh, Vinay Sharma, Pawan Gupta, the 17-year-old juvenile, and Akshay Thakur.
6 of them. And the juvenile? Was he known to the others before?
Apparently not. The source notes that was somewhat surprising that he wasn't previously connected to that group.
Did they confess initially?
The source mentions initial confessions, yeah. Admitting they'd been drinking that morning, wanted to do something fun, quote unquote. And remember, that bus wasn't even authorized for public transport, only for school use, and it had illegal, excessively dark window film.
Making it easier to hide what was happening inside.
Exactly. And there's another really disturbing detail the source brings up.
What's that?
Earlier that same evening, before they picked up Jody and Avindra, the same group had picked up a carpenter. They robbed him of 8,000 rupees and then forced him off the bus.
Okay. Did he report it?
He did. He went to the local police. But the source says the police reportedly just dismissed him, told him to go to the police station in his own area instead of taking action.
Oh, no. So the source raises the question, could this whole horrific attack have been prevented if the police had acted on that earlier report from the carpenter?
It's a very difficult question, the source implies, yeah. A potential missed opportunity, a possible systemic failure right there.
Absolutely chilling. Okay, so moving on to the judicial process. They had 6 suspects. How were the trials handled?
They separated them. One trial for the juvenile, handled by the Juvenile Justice Board, and another trial for the 5 adults.
Let's talk about the juvenile first. He was 17 and a half.
Correct. Just under 18. And the source says the charge sheet against him, 33 pages long, detailed extremely brutal actions on his part, involved in the rapes, specifically mentioned in relation to the iron rod and the severe internal injuries.
Given the severity, was there debate about trying him as an adult?
Huge debate. The source highlights this. Public outcry, arguments that the seriousness of his crime warranted adult trial. Police even tried to get a bone analysis to confirm his exact age and maybe push him over 18, but the Juvenile Justice Board denied that request.
So what was the outcome for him?
The verdict came in August 2013. He was found guilty, rape, kidnapping, murder, destroying evidence. But under the juvenile law at the time, the maximum sentence he could receive was 3 years in a correctional facility.
3 years for all of that.
3 years total, and that included the 8 months he'd already served while awaiting trial. So he was scheduled for release in December 2015.
I can imagine the reaction to that.
Yeah, the source describes widespread public outrage, disbelief. Such a short sentence for such a heinous role in the crime. It mentions one of Jyoti's brothers even tried to lunge at him in court after the verdict.
What happened to him after release, did the source say?
The media tried to track him down. His family apparently disowned him. The source says it's believed he changed his name, his identity, and there are rumors he might be working as a cook somewhere in Kerala now.
Okay. Now, what about the 5 adults?
Their trial started, charges filed January 3rd, 2013, rape, kidnapping, murder, evidence destruction.
The source mentions something controversial about one of the defense lawyers.
Yes. M.L. Sharma. The source points out he made some pretty inflammatory statements, essentially blaming Jyoti and Avindra for being out late, implying Avindra failed to protect her, classic victim blaming, as the source identifies it.
Which is awful, especially considering what the source said about Avindra's efforts.
Exactly. The source makes a point of highlighting his bravery trying to shield her, and even after being thrown out of the bus, injured and barely conscious, he apparently used his last strength to drag her body further from the road, away from the bus's path, before he passed out. He did everything he could.
Absolutely. Then there was a twist during the trial. Something happened to one of the defendants.
Yes, Ram Singh, the main driver. In March 2013, he was found dead in his jail cell, hanged.
Suicide. Or something else.
Authorities weren't definitive, the source says, officially ruled a suicide, but his lawyers suspected foul play, maybe a staged murder. It remains a bit unclear.
Did his death affect the others' cases?
It seemed to. After Ram Singh died, the source notes the remaining 4 adults changed their pleas. They initially confessed, but now they pleaded not guilty, claiming police had coerced those earlier confessions.
But the trial proceeded. What was the final verdict for them?
September 13th, 2013. The court was surrounded by protesters demanding the death penalty. The judge, Yogesh Khanna, he rejected their defense arguments, found them guilty, and sentenced all 4 remaining adults to death.
Stating the crime.
Had shocked the conscience of India. That was the phrase used, according to the source.
How did Jyoti's family react to that verdict?
The source says they were satisfied. Her mother gave an interview expressing relief after such a long, hard fight and thanking the public and the media for their support.
And the defendants themselves. Any remorse mentioned?
That's another chilling point. The source includes a distinct lack of remorse. Mukesh Singh, one of the brothers, even while on death row later, apparently gave an interview with truly disturbing comments. Still blaming Jyoti, saying she shouldn't have fought back, implying women aren't equal. It's hard to comprehend that mindset, as the source reflects.
Just awful. Okay, let's circle back to Jyoti herself. While all this legal process was starting, she was still in the hospital. What does the source say about her medical fight?
It was ongoing, and she was incredibly unwell. December 19th, 3 days after the attack, she had a 5th surgery on her intestines. Still critical.
Did her condition improve at all?
Not really. By Christmas Day, December 25th, still critical, high fever, internal bleeding. The source suggests sepsis, maybe from infection from that rusty rod. But a small sign she could communicate a bit using hand gestures then.
Was there any hope for recovery?
Doctors decided her best, perhaps only, chance was specialized care, maybe even organ transplants. So on December 26th, they recommended transferring her to Mount Elizabeth Hospital in Singapore.
That sounds like a huge undertaking, moving someone that critical.
Extremely risky, the source points out. It was a 6-hour flight on December 27th, requiring intensive medical support the entire way.
Did she make it okay?
She actually suffered a cardiac arrest during the flight, but was revived. But upon arrival in Singapore on the 28th, her condition just deteriorated rapidly. Brain damage, pneumonia, that severe abdominal infection, multiple organ failure.
Oh no.
She passed away the next day. December 29th, 2012, at 4:45 a.m., her body was flown back to India for the final rites.
Such a tragic end after fighting so hard. The source mentioned some controversy about the timing of that transfer.
Yes, it notes her brother felt the transfer came too late. And it mentions another doctor, not directly involved, who reportedly criticized the delay, questioning if it was partly political rather than purely medical, why she was kept in India so long when she was so critical. The source presents it as a point of debate, acknowledging how complex those decisions must have been.
Right. So the death sentences were handed down in 2013, but the executions didn't happen for a long time.
No, there were appeals, legal procedures. It took years. The source mentions the executions were postponed multiple times over about 7 years.
But they were eventually carried out.
Yes. Finally, on March 20, 2020, at 5:30 a.m., the 4 remaining adult convicts, Mukesh Singh, Vinay Sharma, Pawan Gupta, and Akshay Thakur, were hanged at Tihar jail. It was noted as the first execution in India since 2015.
Beyond the individuals involved, the source emphasizes the huge impact this case had on India as a whole.
Massive impact. It sparked widespread protests, huge public discourse about women's rights, women's safety, a real moment of national reckoning.
Did it lead to any concrete changes?
Yes, direct legal reform. The source states the minimum sentence for rape in India was increased from 7 years to 10 years, specifically because of this case.
And it changed how the media handled such cases, too.
It influenced that, yeah. Traditionally, victims' names were often withheld for privacy, but Nirbhaya's family made the difficult decision to reveal her name, Jyoti Singh. Her father even publicly encouraged other victims to speak out. The source sees this as a turning point, helping to break the silence around sexual assault.
Any other initiatives mentioned?
The source notes the Nirbhaya app, a safety app developed by police in Uttar Pradesh, inspired by the case. It has a panic button to alert police, shares location, and the source says it has reportedly helped save lives since then.
That's something positive, at least. What about Avindra? How did he cope afterwards?
The source makes sure to mention his struggle, less media focus on him, but he suffered immensely. Battled intense survivor's guilt, blaming himself, developed severe PTSD nightmares, screaming fits, needed therapy, medication. The source expresses hope for his ongoing recovery.
It's important to remember his trauma, too. And the source mentioned some films or series about the case.
Yeah, for listeners who want to learn more, it points to a documentary called India's Daughter and also a Netflix series, Delhi Crime, both based on these events.
Going through the source material, it's just incredibly heavy, isn't it? The sheer brutality, the legal battles, the societal fallout.
It really is. So many layers. The individual suffering is immense, but also those systemic questions, that Carpenter incident, the debate over the juvenile sentence, the questions around the medical transfer, and then trying to understand the mindset of the perpetrators. It's chilling.
It absolutely underscores that while legal changes happened, like the increased sentence, the problem runs so much deeper, doesn't it? It raises these huge questions about what else needs to change in society, culturally, systemically, to prevent such violence and truly ensure safety.
Exactly. It's not just about laws, it's about attitudes, enforcement, education, everything.
A truly harrowing story, detailed in this source. It leaves you with a lot to think about long after you finish reading it. Thank you for walking us through it.
Thank you. It's an important story to understand, however difficult.